now live. We're live, and so we can share.
Wonderful.
We can share from mine. Of course, with technology, it's always a challenge, right? Every day we're learning. Every week it's something different.
Indeed, indeed. I have some of our fans who are already saying, Mona Lisa, are you coming on? Yes, indeed we are, guys. If you're on, please go share the live. By the way, those of you who are fans of Dr. Benoit and you guys have been inboxing me all day, he's on now. So do share the live. We also have fans of Dr. Jean-Paul. Please do share the live. You guys have been expecting this. Do share the live. Parents, students, do share the live. We are bringing valuable information for you. Do share the live. My group from my brother's keeper, share the live.
Yes, yes.
All right.
And let's make sure that everybody's continuing. Let's just make sure we continue to ask everybody to share the live so that we can have as many people as possible in this particular conversation, because it's an extremely important conversation that we don't want anybody to miss.
In the meantime, I must say that today's a beautiful day where those of us who are still breathing, still alive, we are glad to be alive. I'm grateful to still be breathing. And part of the reason why I'm also happy is because I have people throughout this pandemic who have kept us abreast as to valuable information that have prevented me from being depressed, from giving up. I have a group of students that I've been working with, and I have a group called My Brother's Keeper. And I have to tell you, Johnny, information is power. Knowledge is power. And at the campus where I work with Dr. Jean-Paul, we have a lot of students, a lot of Haitian students, a lot of immigrant population where I don't know what these students would have done if they didn't have a father and a man like Dr. Jean-Paul. And during this pandemic, where suddenly we were told, listen, pack your stuff, you have to leave the building. And all of a sudden, the family that they had within that complex, they no longer have. And a person like myself who's been out of the classroom, I find myself connecting with these students remotely, and I have to get on the phone, get in touch with them. And Facebook became a platform where it became a hospital for us through Dr. Benoit. This is where we're getting our statistics. This is where we're getting, you know what, if you're having this symptom, you should get yourself checked out. This is what's happening around the world. So I'm so grateful to be sitting with these giants today. I call them giants because of what they have to offer to our community. And I'm not just saying the local community, but the global community. So Dr. Benoit, thank you for being so consistent. Thank you for being that constant presence. Although you're a nephrologist, but you cover such a vast area. I don't know if you look under the title that I put under that flyer. I call you a community educator.
Yes.
So that means you overstep your boundary by getting into the area of Dr. Jean-Paul, who is an educator, who's a principal.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch your live every week, and it's like a classroom. It's like a live classroom where everyone comes. It's an everlasting conversation. You know, it's a counseling session. It's a church. It's everything. So, thank you for what you both do.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the community, I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, want to say kudos, chapeau bas, like we say in Creole. thank you for what you do. And I'm grateful. I learned from you guys. I personally learned. And I want to put all my degrees aside. I want to put everything that I've learned over the years that I've been in school, the nerd that I am. I put everything aside to sit and learn. Sometimes, you know, I let somebody else host my own show so I can come and listen to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I am humbled to sit in your presence this afternoon. Thank you for putting that time aside out of your busy schedule to sit on our show today. So Johnny, I want to give you a chance to, you know, bring your greetings.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I just want to thank, you know, all four of our guests really for making the time to have this important conversation with the community. To each one of you, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for being willing to give up part of your Sunday to have this conversation. So without further ado, I think we don't have, you know, a lot of time, and we want to get out as much information as possible to the community in this conversation. So we'll just sort of jump right in and really start with sort of the introduction. And I think it's good that each of you who are here, you know, take maybe a minute or so just to introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of dive into the meat of the conversation, which is, you know, this pandemic, but primarily its impact on schools and how parents, and me included, are thinking about this, both from a school perspective as well as sort of a medical perspective. We know there's a lot of information we're going to try to unpack today, so we'll try to be as concise as possible so that we can get a lot out there. So with that, I think in the order that we are here, we'll just start with Dr. Benoit. If you could just sort of give us a quick introduction, let everybody know who you are, and then, you know, and then we'll just move on to the next guest, and then we'll jump in the conversation.
All right, no problem. My name is Dr. Marcel Benoit. I'm an internist and also a nephrologist, a doctor who takes care of patients with kidney problems. I've been in practice since 1995, and I've been also a physician / an educator for a long time. I've had radio talk shows. I had TV shows on a regular basis just to uplift the consciousness of the people. So I'm going to continue doing that as long as I'm healthy. So in a nutshell, that's about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Benoit. We'll go next to Monsieur Jean-Paul.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to say thank you, Mona Lisa and Johnny, for inviting me to the show. I'm Dr. Max Jean-Paul, currently principal at Brooklyn Ridge Academy High School in the South Shore Educational Complex, also the president of the Society for Haitian School Administrators, and also a local writer with the Canarsie Courier. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been a school administrator for over 15 years. Something I enjoy doing, working with the community, working with all students, and believing in teaching and learning is very important, but also providing information because they are the seeds for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jean-Paul. And Monsieur Romulus? I think you're mute still, so you can unmute yourself.
Is he here? Is he here, Jonathan? Because I was.
He is. Oh, he's here. Yes.
Okay, because he wasn't responding.
No, not only is he here, he's been drinking some amazing drinks with strawberries and blueberries and raspberries, you know, there you go. See, he's been here, you know, drinking some good, healthy stuff. So.
I'm sorry, because I spoke to him, he wasn't responding. So
Excuse me, I had to take a quick bathroom break. I'm sorry, TMI. But I just want to, you know, keep people in the loop while I'm taking my video off.
Come on, partner in crime of mine.
But, so where are we now? Introductions? Introduce myself?
Yes, just a quick introduction about who you are and
Great.
What you do.
Stupendous. My name is Gene Romulus. I'm a nonprofit executive, consultant, and entrepreneur. I'm a champion of public health and education. I'm executive director of Health Education Action League for Haiti and chief executive officer of Youth Grow International. I lead organizational strategy, operations, and governance in alignment with my life's purpose, which is to positively affect the health and well-being of humanity. Through leadership of external affairs, human resources, fund development, I provide primary care to over 1,000 patients annually and education to over 500 students through these organizations. So right now I'm here to talk about our New York City Education Town Hall, Diaspora Families Meeting the Challenges of Social Distancing, in which we'll provide parents the tools and resources to alleviate the disparities and the negative consequences of social distancing given the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I am, that's what I'm doing right now, and thank you for having me aboard. I love the Mojo Show. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Mona, for having this platform for our diaspora.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So the way we're really going to drive the conversation, we're going to start with the context, which is the problem, right? And that everybody faces. And so we'll start with Dr. Benoit to give it a sense of, in terms of schools and COVID-15, what are the challenges from a medical perspective, from a health perspective? What are we looking at?
All right. Thanks, Mona Lisa, for the invite, and I'm glad to be on the platform with Dr. Jean-Paul, Johnny Celestin, and the other guests. Basically, we're going to have to dissect the problem in probably in two ways, because most of us have children who are in middle school, and some of us have children in high school, and some of us have children in college. Now, basically, what science tells us, it tells us when a child is less than 10, it is less likely for the child to transmit the disease. However, studies have found that those children, even that cannot transmit the disease, they have an abundance of viruses in the nasal passages. Again, with this disease, with this infection that is so macabre that every time you hear something, it is possible that those children can transmit the disease. Although we don't have any solid evidence, but looking at the nares of the children, they have more virus in their nasal passages than an adult. That's one. So you got to think about, if you have a child who was less than 10, went to school, then is a problem. Second of all, children more than 10, they definitely can transmit the disease. Now, when you go a little bit further down, teenagers, they are responsible for the major outbreaks of COVID-19 in the U.S. Okay? And when you go into younger generation, the bulk of the new surge of infection resound within this group. So therefore, that you have to look at the realm of each age, and you will see that whether or not it will be feasible to send your child to school. Now, I'm going to take some time to maybe after a question, because again, for you to understand the complexity of this problem, you have to look at the statistics. Definitely, you have to see how many kids have died. You have to see what's the complication, and then you can make a judgment on that, whether your child, and also you have to know where you live, right? Exactly which state you live, and then you can make a decision.
Great. Mona Lisa, you wanna? I see you.
Yes, indeed. So, Dr. Jean-Paul, I've been monitoring our page. When I say our page, of course, the DOE, because we both work for the same institution. Now, as a principal, and I mean, I'm going to speak from my own standpoint based on my observation, there seem to be some confusion still on the side of parents, because no matter how much research we all do, even as an educator, I'm still kind of in the dark as to where we're going. And the chancellor himself in the message that he's giving to us in the videos, in the webinars that we're watching. We know there are 5 options, but yet, even as a parent, I'm like, do I really want to send my child to school? From a medical standpoint, is it safe for me to send my child to school? As an educator, I'm saying to myself, should I really go back? Am I at risk? As a heart patient, am I really at risk to go back to school? So what are some of the things that, as an administrator, that you have in place for your staff in your building for them to return in September?
Well, okay. So that's a very good question, and it's an ongoing question that I believe that everybody is trying to unpack and what makes sense for their individual school communities. So it's important just to keep the transparency. Dr. Bernard shared a lot of information because with this pandemic, this continues to evolve. So the implications on how does that affect our children, how does it affect our parents is a big question right now. And what do I do in September, because September is around the corner? What I would encourage parents and students is something that I do is to have a conversation with your child about how do they feel about returning to the school. Talk to also your school administrators about what are they feeling. For me, at the end of the day, it's safety first and making sure that we have the resources, the PPE that's available. But if you qualify, unless it's not qualified, but if you have underlying conditions or conditions that's set by CDC guidelines, I'm not a medical doctor, but I would say it's important for you to speak with your primary physician about whether it's safe for you to return to the building or not. But within the DOE, there's been conversations that should be happening with parents and students. What I've done is I continue to have town hall meetings with my parents and my students about what's going on and how their reactions, and I take that into consideration and look at what they're thinking. I also create anonymous surveys to get an idea about how students and how my staff, or what's on people's minds, because it's a universal decision that needs to be made. But once again, I want to echo that is safety first before anything. That's very clear. The other point I want to address regarding the models, yes, there's been 5 models that the chancellor has put out for the Department of Education, and it's important that those models be explored in terms of what is best for all students. And it's a conversation, and that conversation looks like in terms of grouping students together. Also, addressing our SPEDs and our Ls, which is also critical. And how does that work within individual schools? So those are ongoing conversations that need to be had with the community, like what is best for the community. But once again, I want to echo that is safety first, because those are some things that are important. And we continue to receive some guidelines around that. But full transparency, these are just continuous conversations that must be had.
If I could do a follow-up.
Yes.
Just a quick follow-up before we get to Jean-Paul Mulus. Dr. Jean-Paul, as a parent, I've received notice from DOE that talks about how there will be, you could either go, completely online, remote, or you could have a blended.
That's correct.
And we don't yet know, right? What does that mean, right? When they say blended, and what is the expectation of DOE for the classroom, right? I mean, we know 6 feet apart, and you wear masks, and the kids will eat lunch in the classrooms. But as someone who's in the schools and planning these things, right? How are you thinking about those questions specifically for both teachers, obviously, but more specifically for students?
Right. So to answer your question, so in terms of a blended, pretty much means that you receive instruction that's not only live when you're coming into the building, but also involves you receiving instruction that is remote. And what the proposals that are that's been shared, they have alternate weeks where you, as a student, you will be placed in a specific cohort, which will be rotated based on which group that you're in. And that's what's been that's been proposed, and it is up to the individual school communities to select what is best for their schools. And this is more about management, but also control and knowing. So these are some so prior to selecting a model for your school, these are ongoing conversation, like what is best applicable for your individual school. But of course, as a parent, you have to also say, hey, is this doable for my student? Because I have to go to work, and if is somebody going to be available to watch my child if they're here that week and alternate week? So as I say, it's an ongoing conversation that I would encourage a parent to have with their child, but also to also have a conversation with your parent coordinator and your administrator to see if that's the best fit. Because it's at the end of the day, it's a matter of what is best for the school, but also a parent has to make a decision what is best for themselves, because we know that kids have been home. We know that, as Dr. Bernard said, there's different needs for students at different ages. So these are some decisions that needs to be made, and you have to continue to explore.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jean-Romulus, tell me, this is, obviously we've heard from the doctor in terms of, we've heard from Dr. Benoit in terms of the risk that are out there in terms of the different age ranges. And we've heard from Dr. Jean-Paul in terms of the decision-making process, both for educators as well as for parents, the kind of process they need to go through. But as someone who works with a lot of students and probably a lot of parents as well, what are you hearing and what are you how are you talking to people in terms of their reflection on these challenges?
Right. So things that I'm hearing, the thing is, I'm not hearing much, because what I'm hearing is misunderstanding, and anxiety, and an ignorance of the future. So in that state, I won't hear much, because people are thinking, people are planning, people are trying to gather information. So I'm glad you highlighted what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is sound the alarm. We have something called summer brain drain, to where the summer vacation already has an average of 1 month loss of learning during the year. This is verified studies that all educators and everyone knows about. But we're not taking into account that over time, the loss of education grows exponentially over time. So if we add another month, we won't be adding an equal amount of learning loss. Another month will have detrimental effects for the last school year of knowledge for our children. So one thing I'm also not hearing is clear directions from the DOE. I'm hearing recommendations. I'm hearing a task force being convened. I'm hearing here's our guidance document for different schools and districts to reopen. But what I'm not hearing is a plan from the overarching DOE on a local level, education on a state level, and a concerted plan on a federal level on how we're going to alleviate and how we're going to address this loss of learning that we're going to have given the COVID-19 pandemic. And so given all this uncertainty,
and all of this transitional time, we know that historically this has negatively affected our people the most. So we don't want our people to get lost by the wayside. So what I'm saying is, sound the alarm, be proactive about education, be proactive about what your family needs, because we can't depend on the state government or the federal government to give us a plan. We can't even depend on our districts or schools, because the district is providing recommendations to the schools on what to do. So if they're providing the schools recommendations, the schools have their individual plans that might affect their needs. So that plan might not benefit your family. So your family has to have an individual plan that supersedes local, state, and federal. A plan for your family, a plan for your children, and we want to provide those resources and those tools during the town hall. So
this is a big point you're making here, because this is obviously, as a parent, quite scary having to sort of individually plan. Obviously, we need to be aware of what's happening and be as knowledgeable as possible so that we can make individual decisions. But there's some collective things that need to happen as well. We'll come back to that point because it is an important one. Before I see Mona Lisa's writing something, so I'll go to Dr. Benoit if you can.
Indeed, I actually have a burning question for Dr. Benoit. So, Dr. Benoit, we've been hearing that, and I just need to confirm with you as the expert, there's a second wave of this virus coming back, and it's going to be worse than the first. And I'm panicking.
Okay, so
and we need to confirm with you.
No, definitely. I think that if you look at the history of viruses, from the first virus in the first flu epidemic in 1918, there's always a second wave. There's always a second wave, and it will definitely happen. So, and the second wave is usually tougher and more difficult to deal with than the first wave. But what I want to do now, I really want to bring to light the statistic in terms of our parents should decide to send a children to school, and based on the numbers, you'll make a decision. Now, the Dr. Jean-Paul should know that of all the school system in this country, New York system is the only school system that will allow physical learning, right? The only school. Now, based on the number of for New York City has about a 1% rate of positivity, meaning that the transmission of the virus is very little, right? So once you have less than 5%, you can be functional. Now, let's look at children in general. When you look at in terms of how many kids have been infected with COVID in the U.S., it's about 338,000 children, close to 340,000 kids have been infected with COVID. They represent about 8.8% of the totality of the COVID infection. Now, it is true, the rate of hospitalization for kids is less than adults. In adults is about in children is about 8 per 10,000. In adults is about 164 per 10,000. So sure enough, kids are less likely to get really sick. Now, but the mortality is even negligible. It's about 0% to 0.8% for kids. So sure enough, the mortality is way less. Now, back in May, the CDC has reported a new entity of COVID called Kawasaki or multi-inflammatory syndrome. Well, odd enough, Dr. Jean-Paul should know that the majority of those kids are Blacks and Latinos.
What age group is that, Doctor?
The young children in middle school. Okay. So now it comes with a viral infection. So your child may have a virus infection, and then your child may catch what you call that disease. Now, and what they found also, 25% of those young kids, they're obese. And you know, there's an epidemic of obesity among children in the U.S. Now, and when you look at the effect of COVID affects the Black race across the board, children and adults. 40% of those people are Latinos, 33% are Blacks, only 13% are whites. So again, that's a question that we parents would have to think about. I think that parents are going to have to do a lot of education about their kids, washing their hands, understand that if they feel that their friends, that the comrades have a fever, make sure they stay away. So there's a lot of education that you have to do for children if you really want the children to go back to school. And I think that Dr. Jean-Paul can ascertain that physical learning, remote learning doesn't work. Remote learning doesn't work exactly for Blacks and Latinos. And I was shocked to hear that many Latinos, many Blacks in the Bronx don't have access to internet. So are you going to teach a child without being able to access to internet? So that's a problem. Now, if we look at
Dr. Benoit, why you're saying that remote learning doesn't work?
Huh? Remote learning.
I'm sorry, Johnny. I really have this burning question, and
No, go ahead. I have a burning one as well. But go ahead.
Remote learning doesn't work because for Blacks and Latinos because they don't have access to internet.
Well, he's addressing the digital divide. If you don't have access to Wi-Fi or have the devices at hand, then it's impossible for students to learn. That's a valid point, and that is something that is that's critical. And that, I mean, for me personally, that is something that I made sure that when we transition to remote, we wanted to make sure that all my students had access to the devices that they needed in order to learn. But also the other point I just want to just stress to Dr. Bernard's point is and that's something else Remus was saying, is that the level of advocacy and the concerns that are hurting our communities, this is why we have this platform, is to address how can we get that extra support that our families needs, and also the information in terms of what does it look like when you do, if you do decide to return to the building, what are the precautions that you're taking? What are the messages that you're sending, that you're sitting down and having with your child about washing your hands, keeping the 6 feet distance apart. So these are the steps that we need to continue to have, because those guidelines are important. But those are 2 points that I agree with you on, Dr. Bernard, is the awareness and also the sustainability, because that's critical also.
You know what, while I agree, and I just want to bring an answer to what you just mentioned, Dr. Jean-Paul, and I'm quite sure that you're aware of that because you were my backbone as I was doing this program, my brother's keeper, okay? Right. And at the end of that program, I had a celebration for those children because, again, I was tired of bugging you, and you knew that during that time, while these children didn't have access to internet, their cell phone became that backup. Okay, I had them log onto their cell phone to complete those assignments, or they would use the internet from their cell phone to log on. And it was a struggle. And that's how we were able to overcome those challenges. So we found a way. It was a struggle, but we were able to surmount those mountains. Now, my burning question was for Dr. Benoit, and I agree, yes, it is a challenge, and it's hard for them to learn. But now it's a matter of that issue versus safety. It's that issue versus this virus, the possibility or the likelihood of this virus coming back much stronger than it was back in the spring. So it's a life versus learning, L versus L. So what do we do in that instance?
But I think that's why New York City, New York State has implemented testing, tracing almost every day. I think that right now the rate of positivity is 1% in New York State. So if the governor allows school to open, and let's say that he sees that the rate of positivity is going up, definitely he's going to retract. Right? He's going to retract.
Exactly.
So I think that he's going to retract. I think that we're lucky in New York State we have that chance because I mean, during this COVID time, the black kids suffer the most than white kids.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Well, this is where I wanted Dr. Benoit. I'm sorry for cutting you because this is so extremely important what you're saying right now that I wanted you to kind of say it again, but in a different way and break it down for me, right? Mm. So, and then I'm going to repeat this just because I want to make sure I understand it, right? So when you're talking about, there's two categories, maybe three categories. There's kids that are 10 or below. There are kids that are maybe between 10 and 18. And then there's adults, right? Young adults. Yeah. So forget the adults because that's a different conversation. Yeah. So we stick in the two categories. In the first category, if I understood you correctly, the kids that are 10 and below, their rate of infection, I'm just really trying to break it down for me who doesn't have a scientific background, right? Mm-hmm. The rate of infection, which is one thing, is less. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Second category, 10 to 18, let's say. Is it the same, about 1%, or is it higher?
It's about 1%, well, little more than 1%. Yeah.
More than 1%. Okay. So that's infection rate. So that's infection rate. Okay. Yeah. Now, in terms of let's say your child catches COVID-19 because they might fall in the 1%. Mm-hmm. You mentioned some inflammatory, forget the other issues in terms of overweight, obesity issues, or asthma issues that our communities face. Just on this particular point, very specifically, what are some of the new symptoms, or I can't remember exactly what you said, that are being discovered now? You get me, right?
Yeah. So it's an old entity, but a new entity now linked to COVID-19. Okay. So what is understood is that those kids had a viral infection in the past, and that viral infection opened the doors for COVID-19. So they're present with fever, rash, beefy tongue, and weakness, vomiting, and the worst they can have, they can go into shock. And there have been about a good number of kids catching this infection, going to ICU, going to intensive care unit. And it's been reported about 570 cases in total in the United States. It's been reported in 40 states, right? Again, what I'm trying to convey that despite all that, I think that the fact those of us who are living in New York State, we're lucky. I think that parents need every day sit down every day because kids, it's a constant reinforcement. Every day before they leave the home, you got to educate them. And again, we know that physical learning is paramount because remote learning kids do not concentrate well at home. They always want to play, and losing 2-3 months of academic year, it's a major loss. So I think that again, parents going to have to do the job more often than before. Sit down, talk to the kids, social distancing, wash your hands all the time, and wear your mask. And I think that we can climb the mountain this way.
You know what? This comment is going to be for yourself, Dr. Benoit and Dr. Jean-Paul. Here's the issue that we have. We have issues with children, and it's natural because they're children, they're kids. However, you also have some of our teachers who have issues with classroom management. You have children that are coming out of confinement. All of a sudden, they're reuniting with their friends. They're excited. They're happy. Okay. And you also have some of us who are not too crazy about putting our hands on people's children because, you know, physical contact is something that us as adults, we understand. Okay. They don't understand that. They don't have that concept. How do you then control that? Because I'm also foreseeing a sudden, explosion of sharing, of spreading of this virus upon return.
Dr. Jean-Paul a sauvé tête li.
And I'm not being
I'm not being
negatif. M'a gade ti moun sa ki pral woman ki jan nou pral kontrole la gay sa. Ki jan nou pral gérer. Chris parle avec. Parce que nous sommes pas nous discuter dans town hall là tout. Nous avons parlé de ça dans
Jean-Paul m'kweli gen un pile bagay pour dire.
Yeah, Mona Saudi c'est vrai, c'est très important. But the first thing for me, once again, it goes back to a lot of points that's been made in this conversation, is that it has to start at home in terms of educating your child about COVID-19 and about taking the necessary precautions. In terms of you cannot, if you're going to send your child to school, there's no more of that hugging or giving high five. It's about that elbow, but also keeping that distance. You just have to be very transparent. Yes, continue to drink your water, drink your tea, little things like that. But you got to take necessary precaution. The second point I want to address, though, even before someone returns back to the building, there is a certain norms that you have to discuss with your child in terms of what are the expectations when you're returning back to the building? What are your expectations leaving your home? These are some things that needs to be addressed. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Those are the reality, because Mona, what you're describing is some of that anxiety that we're all feeling, what we have to deal with in returning to this sense of normalcy. But we have to have these conversations, but breaking it down little by little, whether it's for a 6-year-old, you have to go with A, B, and C. To a teenager, hey, this is what can happen. Dr. Bernard could probably show, hey, this is what happens if COVID affects your lungs. You cannot breathe. You can end up in ICU. You have to have these real conversations with our youth and with our parents to say, these are the steps that you have to take before that child leaves your house, leave your apartment, because it is serious. Because if you get it, I can get sick, and that can start to, have, effects.
That's so example. Are you saying that Johnny and I have more work to do as media folks?
I didn't say that.
Are you giving us are you telling that besides me that
my parle verite, Konya. This is what we have to do. But I'm gonna get it to Chris right now, but I said what I had to say.
But can I make a point? I think we have to look at the other models. There are some models that have been very successful around the world. Sweden, Japan, South Korea, China. The rate of positivity is 1%. Kids went back to school. I've gone back to school. I think we have to look at those models. Those models work. So again, I'm not comfortable to see our Black kids staying home, because they're gonna, down the line, there's gonna be a major deficit, and we cannot afford that. And I think that I cannot reinforce that much. We are lucky that we live in New York State. Other states may not have that luxury to have physical learning, because the rate of positivity is about 10%. most across the United States. We have Connecticut, we have Jersey and Maine and New York. That's about 1% or less. All right, they can have physical learning, and we're lucky on that point. And I think that it's time for our kids to go back to school and learn.
So, Dr. Benoit, what are the current stats now? I mean, within the Quad State area. When I say Quad State, I'm talking about New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Philadelphia. What are the current stats?
The current stat.
On top of those things, yeah.
Current stat: New York has 1% positivity. 1% rate of positivity is 1%. That means that the chance for somebody to catch the virus is only 1%. New Jersey is 1.5. Connecticut is below 1%. Maine is below 1%. Right? So if your state has a rate of positivity less than 5%, you are functional. You can function. Again, we're gonna have to reinforce that. And something else I can tell Dr. Jean-Paul, I think that kids need visual stimulation. I think if kids every morning before they get to class, they get a video looking at complication of when somebody can catch COVID. What are the complications? Getting sick in ICU and even death. That will sink in.
Okay. So, Dr. Jean-Paul, coming back to you, does that mean then a change in the curriculum, incorporating health into the curriculum for teachers?
No, I think there's a couple. I think it's important that you continue to set the expectations. As Dr. Benoit say, for me, it's about safety first, and that's more important than anything. But then also, if you're involved in remote learning, then you have to also start to explore the various platforms to create that innovation. And that's something that takes time, doing your research as an educator and using some of the platforms like Seesaw, Flipgrid. That's just examples of trying to make the lessons as enriched as impossible to try to make that connection. The other part that I want to just make in terms of whether it's remote or live instruction is remote or in person is, at the end of the day, I also firmly believe that it's important to have those relationships with students. That makes a difference in terms of what the learning outcomes are going to be, because that makes a huge difference. It's something that I always convey to my students, that I know it was hard. It was hard in terms of, being in a school and all of a sudden the pandemic hit and you're not able to go back into the building. And it's a challenge. You have people around you, we're hearing the sirens and so forth, but you don't have that usual person that's there, that's motivating you, that's encouraging you. And that's not easy. One of the things that I continued to do was a virtual hug with my students and with my staff. But I just want to say, just come back to the relationship part. And I think the relationship that you have with your students, but also the relationship that a child have with their parent also will make a big difference in terms of making sure that the learning can continue to take place. And it's not easy, but I think that makes a really big difference in addressing the social emotional part and sustaining it so that learning can actually take place, even though there was a delay without having the in-house instruction. But I think that also helps a little bit more when you have those firm relationships with a school, with a parent, and then also ultimately with the community.
Yes. So, Johnny, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of look at some of the questions that our audience, are probably throwing at us. But prior to doing that, I truly wanted to showcase Chris. You guys call him Jean. I love to call him Chris. This mastermind, this quiet storm that I call him. He sits there all quiet, but no one knows the brilliance that exists in Jean Romulus. Prior to COVID, him and I were in Washington together, lobbying in Congress and at the Senate. And recently, you know, he called me and he says, Dr. Ferrari, you know, I got an idea and I need you on board because I can't do this. I'm not taking off, you know, on this project without you because I know what you can bring into this and you're a force to reckon with. I'm not doing this without you. And we have Pascal Pereira, who's a member of Dr. Jean Paul's organization, which is Shasta. Dr. Jean Paul, I say you didn't talk about Shasta, but anyway, Shasta is behind us on this project. I'm one who's very passionate about education, you know, overall, especially parents. That immigrant population who's always left behind, that sometimes, you know, nobody seemed to think about it. But when I saw someone like Chris, who did not even major in education, he's an entrepreneur. And why should he care about parents and immigrant students? He's born here. Why should he care? You know? And Chris, you really touched my heart in a special way. And I have no choice. My plate is already full. And everybody who knows me, I work around the clock. But I couldn't say no to you, Chris. And we've been working day and night. My phone broke down, but you know, I found ways. And so we overnight put this whole project together. And Dr. Jean-Paul, you cannot say no to us either. Johnny, all of you guys sitting on this panel. And we're going to drag Dr. Benoit as well, because, you know, we're here to serve. And you are all dedicated people. And Dr. Benoit, knowing you, knowing where your heart is, you are a man who has given yourself. All of you guys are just, I literally can call you guys community slaves. Seriously, it's not about money, okay? And I know I can count on you. There's not been any time that I call on every last one of you on this panel that it doesn't happen. You guys are doers, you're movers and shakers, and you're gonna make things happen. So, Chris, kudos to you, brother. Chapeau bas. And I just want to give you a chance to kind of talk about the project. I won't talk about it. I'll let
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's really great to work with you, Mona. Ever since you've been coming on, it's been intense. I go to sleep at night and I dream about this project. You know, every day until the day it happens is just the most fulfilling day that I ever had. And the New York City Education Town Hall Diaspora Families Meeting the Education and Social Distancing is happening on August 20th, Thursday, August 20th at 6 p.m. And we're building equity through education in the new normal. Like I said, we're alleviating the learning loss that it comes from summer and beyond now, given this COVID pandemic. And the changes induced by learning often last a lifetime. So it's paramount that we do this. We have tons of community partners, over 15 community partners already getting involved, including the Gentleman's Factory, Showing Hearts Foundation, Teleimage, Curtis Careers, INFAC, which is, I call them the Haitian Coursera, great organization. Other for-profit organizations supporting us as well. I encourage people to go on our Facebook. So Mona Lisa Ferrari, everybody here should be Mona Lisa's friend. Everybody that is great leader in our community is already Mona Lisa's friend, but you could also become my friend as well. Jean Chris Romulus on Facebook, facebook.com/RomulusJC. And there you can find more information about the New York City Education Town Hall Diaspora Families addressing the challenges of social distancing. Again, it's on August 20th. We will be extending this discussion and making it more poignant to families, providing them resources and the knowledge they need to make sure their children succeed, to make sure our people succeed. Like Dr. Benoit and Dr. Jean-Paul says, proactivity is key, and parents taking the tutorial reins is significant to our growth and our success. So thank you, Mojo, again. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to this panel.
By the way, Chris, I spoke to Assembly Member Radis Bishad about the project. She's already on board.
Nice.
We'll be adding her. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I also want to announce that I'm launching YOLIB, which is the Youth Leadership Institute of Brooklyn. engaging our young people in civic engagement, honoring the legacy of John Lewis. This year's an election year. You guys know how I feel about our young people. And I personally want to encourage them to participate in civic engagement, community involvement. There may be a time that I may no longer be, and guess what? All I want to do is leave a legacy, leave children in good hands by being involved. I'm not here forever. I just simply want to.
Can I ask, Monalisa? I don't mean to. I know we're almost out of time, but yes, I wanted to take a question from someone from the audience, and I thought it was important to ask.
I see the Georgia people asking questions to Dr. Benoit.
Yeah, I thought it was important to ask, and this question was really about special needs children, right? I mean, we know that there are specific needs that immigrant kids will have. We know that there are specific needs that children who have challenged with the sort of the digital divide have, right? But everyone talks about those. So I think this question was really important, and I don't know who wants to take it. Maybe we'll start with Dr. Jean-Paul, since he's sort of front line, having to think about these particular issues. But what are we thinking about? What are we doing for children with special needs who actually, above and beyond everything else that we've talked about here, who have needs that are greater than that? How do we respond to them in this particular context?
So there are different models that were presented from the department to address that. There's different. I don't know the models. I know which model I chose was 1B, but there are specific models that would assist those students with special needs and also our Ls to provide the necessary support and accommodation. But what I would just share is there's different strategies that you can also do in making sure that you're working with the community to make sure that the students are getting their needs met. And that's just in conversations and where you include not just the school, but you have to have everybody as part of the school, from the para to the student to the parent, and making sure that individual child is getting everything that they need, as speculated by the IEP.
Is there any expectation that we want to normalize the life of these children who have special needs, right? And we want them, as Dr. Benoit said, kids need to be in classrooms because it's important for them to have that interaction, not only with each other, but with teachers. Is there, from what any of you have heard, are there specific requirements or a specific focus on children with special needs to be in the classroom? Is there anything, Chris?
I'd like to real quick, and I think Dr. Benoit might know more than me on this topic, but while I have the document, the official DOE document in front of me, Recovering, Building, and Renewing the Spirit of New York Schools Reopening Guidance. This is the official 145-page document that is given to districts and schools. It says schools and school districts are required to provide a free, appropriate public education consistent with the need to protect the health and safety of students with disabilities and those providing special education and services. As for the bilingual, reopening plans must address the learning loss experienced by many English language learners in both the English language development and the mastery of content area knowledge. So in terms of rights that parents have in the New York City DOE system, your school and your district is required to serve you and meet your needs. And I just want to equip all the families with the knowledge of their rights.
Well, Chris, maybe this is something that will as you guys think about in the next, in the event that you're going to be having, that maybe there's a special focus on this, because obviously what you just read, as you were reading it, in my mind, I was sort of thinking about the Constitution saying all men are created equal when a great percentage of the people were slaves. So it seems to me, when we talk about parents have rights, of course, parents have rights, but certainly we know that parents of kids who are immigrants and or people who are not from wealthy communities generally cannot avail themselves of these rights, right? Even though everybody has those rights. And so what are we doing as a community to ensure that our kids, particularly immigrants and children with, potentially learning disabilities or physical disabilities, to be able to have the same everything that we just talked about here, right? Which is that children need to be in classrooms. They need to be with each other. That's the best way to learn. And making sure that we are intentional about making space for them as well. Right. And I think it was an important question. So we'll just go backwards as we did from the start. I don't know if Mona Lisa have any other questions, but we'll just go backwards with the closing since Chris, you are the last one. Unless Mona Lisa has some questions for you, we'll just basically take Mona Lisa's questions and then ask you to conclude just your last thoughts as we close out the show. Mona Lisa, I don't know if you have questions as folks are summarizing and closing.
I actually have a proposition for Dr. Benoit, and I don't know if I should make it public or if I should make it private.
No, Mona Lisa, opkaze lutte là, oui là, opkaze lutte là. You can do your proposal to Dr. Benoit.
I was going to make it on behalf of a fan, but it's okay. I'll make it private.
No, you can still do it, but we're going to do the conclusion starting with Chris, then with Dr. Jean-Paul.
Somebody just inboxed me and asked me, can I have Dr. Benoit on my show for a health segment on the Mojo? They asked me to make that special request.
Well, we'll make the request when we get to Dr. Benoit and his closing. So, but Chris, go ahead.
I'm going to get mine quickly out of the way. It's our education town hall. Go to my Facebook, facebook.com/RomulusJC. Go to Mona Lisa Ferrari's Facebook. Go to her page and you'll see the New York City Education Town Hall. It is on Thursday, August 20th. Please be there. Please RSVP. The RSVP's in the e-invite. We look forward to seeing you there. We'll provide you resources, equip you with skills so we can attack this COVID-19 pandemic from an educational perspective in the best way we can. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
And John, I just wanted to quickly add to what Chris just said. The presentation will definitely be in Haitian Creole because we're trying to address specifically the need of the Haitian community, a bilingual community, bilingual learners.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Jean-Paul.
Well, first I want to say thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this important conversation and to be continued. My message to everyone is, please, it's really important for everyone to work together for the safety of our students and our parents and so forth. And whatever decision that you make, just remember that you're not alone. We're all dealing with this, but it's very important that we work together. But safety is important, and definitely take all the recommendations from the CDC. I know Dr. Bernal would have a lot to say, but it's very important that we take this very seriously. But I do believe that learning can take place. We have a responsibility to do this, but we have to continue to work together for the safety of our students, our staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jean-Paul. Le coulier Mona Lisa au commandé Dr. Benoit fait demande la coulier as he does his conclusion.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Let me take this time to thank you, Dr. Benoit, for responding to the call. Thank you for being
my pleasure.
The woman that you are. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to seriously do this. You did not hesitate one bit. You did not even consider that this call came to you at the last minute. Without hesitation, you responded. I wanted to reiterate to you that I truly admire you. I respect your work. I appreciate you, and on behalf of the global community, because you have friends all across the world who actually watch your show, and we learn. It's always a pleasure to sit and learn from what you have to teach, the multiple subjects that you have to teach. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being you. So please give us your last words of wisdom.
I think Romulus says something that's very important. I think there's a lot of ignorance out there, and I think that the job we're doing here is vital to educate our people what are the facts are, and if we do that, I think that we can achieve something. But before I depart, I know we talk about children, but I know there are parents who have college kids going to college, and for them also it's a concern whether or not their children can go back to college. Now, just based on stat, there are about 6,000 college students been infected with COVID. Now, the major universities, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, University of Massachusetts, they're all going to do remote learning. All of them going to do remote learning, except Harvard, which is going to allow 40% of the undergrads to come on campus. So again, parents who have kids in college, again, that's something they got to think about. Also, whether they have to send the child to school. I think it's easier for a 18-year-old, 19-year-old to be counseled, to be educated about COVID than a 6-year-old. You tell the 6-year-old, don't play with your friend, don't get close. So again, I think that again, I cannot reinforce that much. Parents gonna have to do that job along with educators. Make sure that we sensitize our children. Make sure that they wear their masks all the time and wash their hands.
Very well said, Dr. Benoit. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And since usually as we do on the show, Mona Lisa opens and I close, or vice versa, so I will close this time to once again.
At least give me a chance to thank you too, Johnny. Thank you for being my partner. Thank you for being
of course, and it is my pleasure, and thank you for being my partner. I just want to thank all three of you for your willingness to be on this show. I think what this conversation has shown is that this is obviously the beginning of a conversation that needs to continue, because as we learn more, we need to come back and help parents really understand and digest what they're hearing in order to make the best decision for themselves as well as for their families. And so I really appreciate it. Even as a parent, for me, this really helped me understand some of the issues and some of the things that I need to think about in terms of my daughter going back to school. And so thank you very much for making yourselves available. Thank you very much on behalf of the larger Mojo community for, all this information that you shared with us. And we hope that we will have you again. We count on having you again because there'll be more information coming up. So that said, thank you. We wish you all a great Sunday afternoon. And as we say here, if it's Sunday, it's Mojo, Le Mojo, and it's the place to get your mojo back. With that,
and stay tuned for the other half of the show, which is going to be with the teachers,
yes.
Parents and students
next week. We will have teachers and parents and students to talk about their perspective about this particular issue.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon. Good evening. Good afternoon.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.